Beautiful friends, we have just pressed the Let's Go Live button, and so let's wait for the tubes to connect themselves all across the fruited plain of the interwebs, because we have some business to attend to today. A great stream coming ahead. We've got a bunch of stuff we're unpacking today. We're going to start off talking about Diddy, because you know Puff Daddy. If you're somebody who grew up, if you're an 80s baby, grew up in the 90s, you had a lot of Puff Daddy in your life. And so we're going to poke around. Let me give you a little brief of what we're talking about today. But he was in court. He was trying to get out of custody. He's been arrested. A lot of people are pointing to this case as though it's the next Weinstein case, or as though this is the next Epstein case. We have a Ghislaine Maxwell update today, just coincidentally, but we've got some serious allegations here, trafficking. And what's so curious about this case is that Diddy was apparently allowed, just like Epstein was, just like Weinstein was, to hang out and do this stuff for about 3 decades, all throughout American life and American culture. Then lo and behold, all of a sudden, boom, they indict him, and he was fighting to get out of custody today. He actually submitted a proposal for $50 million in bail, and it looked like this. We'll read through it. You can see right there. How about $50 million? And a bunch of other stuff, right? Secured by equity in his home, by other homes, bunch of passports all being surrendered, and they still didn't let him out of custody. So he's in there. We'll take a look at what the DOJ had to say about this. We read through the full indictment this morning on our members only stream. You can become a member by just checking out the links in the description. But there's more background here, because this is from the filing to hold Diddy in detention. And you can see there's some photographs here of the firearms and some of the illegalities that he had. And so we'll go through this and see what is inside. It's a juicy one. There's some pretty wild things that are alleged here, including the fact that he was having some freak off little parties. And that is about what it sounds like. So we'll go through this. We'll see what the government was alleging that is required to keep him in detention. They do not want him out. The judge has said you're not getting out. And so we'll go through all that today. We'll see where this case goes, but it is a juicy and a spicy one. So we'll go through all of that. Now, simultaneous to this, we also have Ghislaine Maxwell. Remember Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein's number 2? Still a little bit curious as to why she's in prison. Of course, she was a monstrous woman, and we're not condoning anything that she was involved in. But she was just one small cog in a much bigger problem, a much bigger situation. A lot of people were hanging out with Epstein, flying to that island and so on and so forth. And none of them got indicted. Only Ghislaine Maxwell got indicted. Now, she has appealed this up from the Southern District of New York, right where Diddy is right now. And so she's saying that the trial was bad. We spent a lot of time here on this channel. We covered the trial extensively. And it was a wild case, because apparently Ghislaine Maxwell was the only person who did anything wrong in this. All these women, I guess, were being manipulated and exploited by Maxwell. No one else was involved at all. And so she appealed this. And in my opinion, she is legally immune on this. I think she's going to appeal this to the Supreme Court, and we'll see what they do with it. But remember, there was a non-prosecution agreement that Jeffrey Epstein entered into via the federal government. And that non-prosecution agreement right here, you see that, was so broad and was so extensive that in our read of it, it immunized Epstein and like everybody Epstein had ever talked to. And we read through that non-prosecution agreement. We go, what the hell? What kind of government prosecutor is going to give Epstein and everybody he's ever talked to immunity? And I'm not kidding. We read the NPA, and it was so broad. It was like, if you were even Epstein's valet driver, you're also immune for the rest of your life. You're like, wow, that's pretty incredible. And the government prosecutors were the ones who gave that to him. He entered it, and then they turned around and prosecuted him for the same conduct. And we're all sitting here scratching our heads. We're not condoning anything that Jeffrey Epstein did, but it was just interesting that suddenly this guy was being prosecuted after decades of being on the opposite end. So same thing's happening with Diddy. And of course, we'll go through it and see what's inside. But Ghislaine Maxwell, as you can see here in this filing, is getting some bad news from the Court of Appeals. She took this up on appeal, saying that that non-prosecution agreement should apply to her. and that the verdict from the jury that came back down and sentenced her to prison, convicted her and sentenced her to prison, should be overturned. And you can see, remember the attorneys who were on this case? Remember this one? Maureen Comey, James Comey's daughter. It's all so rigged. All right, so we'll go through it. We'll see what Ghislaine Maxwell is up to. And then we'll turn our attention here to round out the day. I got a bunch of video clips, so we'll save that for the end. But we've got some updates on the golf attack, the 9/15 golf attack, second assassination attempt. We have to number our assassination attempts here because the Democrats are trying to kill him so much. So it's hard. We're trying to keep track of it. So we're on assassination attempt number 2, and we'll go through this. But apparently, Ryan Routh, the second assassin, was flagged by Custom and Border Patrol officials earlier this year. But guess what the Department of Homeland Security did once they learned about this? Nothing. They said, oh, perfect, let him in. Give him a map to Mar-a-Lago while you're at it. And so we'll see what Just the News is reporting. This guy was also in court, as we saw yesterday, and apparently he was smiling, kind of just laughing, yucking it up throughout the whole thing. And what's so wild about this is they're blaming Trump for his own assassins. They're like, maybe if Trump didn't talk so violently, people wouldn't be trying to kill him. You're like, what? He's not saying anything about any of that. In fact, you guys are the ones who were constantly calling him a threat. And Karine was out today in her press briefing, and she came out and called Trump a threat to democracy again. And Peter Doocy wasn't playing around with that. So he says, you know, are you guys going to stop this? Or are you going to wait for them to finally eliminate him? The Trump campaign came out. They dropped this whopper on us, and it's a lot of fun. You can see they are identifying all of the insurrectionary language that has come out from the left. They say if Trump says the word fight, fight, fight or anything, if Trump says something bad about the judge's daughter or the judge or Alvin Bragg or all the corrupt people in Alvin Bragg's orbit, well, that's illegal. And they're all going to die in New York because they've never dealt with that before in their lives. And now all of a sudden, Trump is pointing out the obvious, that these people are saying Trump is the greatest threat to American democracy since the Civil War. Kamala just said that today in her little word salad conversation with the black journalists. And we see that they're the ones who were saying that Trump's the greatest threat to America, but somehow they're happy he's alive. It's wild. Well, we're real happy there's no violence against the president. What? You just said he's going to end America. You don't want any violence against someone who's going to end America? Then what the hell are you doing? Now, Trump was there and actually invited the law enforcement officials over to Mar-a-Lago to shake their hands. I mean, just look at this room, man. I mean, this guy is just like, can you imagine if like that's your living room? Well, just step on in here or like have a conversation with you in this living room. It's gold everywhere. It's wild. So we got a bunch of other clips. We had a couple Congress people showed up to hang out with Caitlin Collins. Ron DeSantis is out there. He's starting a state level investigation, and Kamala says that she called President Trump. We've also got Hillary, who is saying that people who are engaging in propaganda probably would put us on that list, even though we're factual and accurate here. She wants us all jailed, I guess. She wants criminal charges and civil penalties for Americans like you and I. So we're here. We've got a bunch of good stuff to get to today, my friends. Very glad that you're here and with us. Thanks for subscribing to our channel. Thanks for liking this video. Thanks for being membos. We're very grateful to have you here. Before we jump into any of the business on the day, we've got to make sure that we're properly prepared because we know that there are pandemics around the corner. Things are getting more unpredictable by the day. We've got assassination attempts and now this looming threat of a global health emergency. And did you know that there's a bird flu summit that's coming up in October? It reminds us of that Event 201, that COVID situation. And get this, they're going to be talking about mass fatality management planning. If that doesn't sound chills down your spine, well, I don't know what will. But here's the good news. You don't have to be scared if you're prepared. The wellness companies created a medical emergency kit, and every home in America should have at least one of these babies. They're packed with life-saving meds like ivermectin, amoxicillin, even Z-Pak. It's all backed by experts like Dr. Peter McCullough. You know who he is. And so you can imagine this. No more frantic searches as you're trying to figure out what's going on with your medication. It just comes right delivered to your door. It's very easy. And let me show you how that works. As soon as we have this queued up here, you can see you don't even have to worry about it. It's just going to cut delivered right to your door. It's going to be a beautiful situation. And it's perfect in times like these to be prepared. It's not just a luxury, it's a necessity. And so protect your family by preparing now. Go on over to twc.health/Robert. Link is down in the description below. Use code Robert when you're checking out. You'll save $30. Don't wait until it's too late, my friends. Act now, take control, ensure you're protected against whatever comes next. twc.health/Robert. Use code Robert. You'll get free shipping and you'll save $30. And it's a great way to make sure you're prepared. All right. And so thanks for supporting our friends at the Wellness Company who help support this show and make it possible for us to do what we're doing here. We're grateful for you too as well. Thank you. Now, let's get to it, my friends. We got business to attend to on the day Puff Daddy Diddy is not getting out of jail. He tried to. He posted a $50 million proposal to the judge that looks like this, saying that he is not going to flee. He's not going anywhere. You can trust him to come back to court. His appearance will be secured. The problem is, the judge isn't buying it. And we're going to go through what happened in court. The court proceedings were very spicy as well. Our friend Inner City Press gave us some details, and we'll read through this and see what happened specifically. But I want to share with you what the government is saying and why they don't want Diddy let out of custody. This is from their detention memo to the judge. You see, this is filed in the U.S. District Court, Southern District of New York, same place that Ghislaine Maxwell got charged, same place that Harvey Weinstein got charged. Now Diddy is here. People are asking the question, is this the same type of situation? You see, this went over to the judge, the Honorable Robin Tarnofsky, and it's sent from government prosecutors. And let's give some highlights on what's happening here, why they're saying we cannot let this guy out. He's a danger. He's going to cause more problems. So we got to keep him in custody. They tell us. Now, the defendant, Sean Combs, I think we'll use interchangeable names. We'll call him Puff Diddy, P. Diddy, Diddy, PD, Love in the House, Sean, you know the names. He was taken into custody this morning, the date of the filing, after a grand jury returned a 3-count indictment that charged him with decades-long patterns of physical and sexual violence against multiple victims, all to fulfill his desires. And so the government knows that we're going to be in court. And we're letting you know, Your Honor, that if you release him, there will be problems. Why? Because Diddy is dangerous and he poses an ongoing safety to the community. If you release him, he's going to be a serious flight risk. Now, most glaringly, he also poses a significant risk to obstructing justice. He's going to delete a bunch of evidence and so on. And so, as set forth during the course of the charged conduct, the defendant has attempted to bribe security staff, and he's already threatened witnesses. He's already tried to obstruct the government's investigation of this case as well. And there are simply no conditions that would ensure that he's going to stop this behavior. And so he cannot leave. And so you should order him detained. Here's why. He got indicted on September 17th. 3 counts. 1, sex trafficking from 2009 through about 2018. Interstate transportation to engage in prostitution from the same approximate date range all the way up till this year, and count 3, which was another count of that. Now, here's what he did. They say since at least 2008, Diddy and other members were associated in a racketeering scheme. Now, using the power and the prestige of Diddy and his brand and his enterprise, he would lure women in, and they would come and engage in freak-offs, as you see here, freak-offs with male commercial sex workers. And this would happen regularly. They occurred from at least 2009 through this year. Decades of freak-offs. And they frequently involved multiple sex workers. Now, Diddy would arrange these freak-offs at businesses, hotel rooms, and they would often sustain damages in the rooms. Now, the defendants, Diddy, also ensured that the victims would participate through coercion, violence. He'd give them ecstasy, ketamine, GHB, and so that they would continue to do this. There would be pain and exhaustion, multiple types of abuse, physical, emotional, verbal. At least a dozen witnesses will personally confirm that they observed this violence. One incident of a physical abuse occurred when a female victim was attempting to leave. We saw the video of that. That happened in 2016, and he just was allowed to continue to abuse them for the next almost decade. Now, the abuse was captured on surveillance and publicly reported this year, which is when it all started to leak, and somebody had to do something about it because this stuff started leaking. The defendant's assaults often resulted in serious injuries to the victims, often took weeks to heal. He also coerced victims by controlling their careers, threatening to disseminate their recordings of the freak-offs. So once you do it, then you're under their thumb, just like Epstein did. Now, the defendant used his wealth and influence to make victims rely on him. He'd pay for their rent, pay for their cars, then he'd threaten to take it away if they didn't do it. There was also other violence: kidnapping, arson, physical violence. In the early morning of December 22nd, 2011, Diddy and a co-conspirator kidnapped an individual at gunpoint, breaking into the residence of that person. Multiple witnesses would testify at trial to these events about the kidnapping and the break-in, which is corroborated by police reports. Approximately 2 weeks later, Diddy and his co-conspirators set fire to the vehicle by slicing over the convertible top and dropping a Molotov cocktail inside. Police and fire departments documented the arson, and they know that it was intentionally set. Multiple witnesses would also testify that Diddy bragged about destroying this person's car. Now, more broadly, since at least 2008, allegations of Diddy's physical abuse of women have been publicly reported in the media, including in Hollywood and podcasts. It's the dude's whole brand. I can't believe it. He degrades women? You're kidding. Diddy? The rapper? Yeah. Law enforcement reports corroborate that police responded to several instances of the violence, including assaults against victims and individuals. More recently, there's been an outpouring of other public allegations going back to the 90s. In short, Diddy is known to be violent, but at no point has the public exposure or law enforcement intervention deterred him from continuing his abuse. Now, he's also got a bunch of firearms. On occasion, Diddy would force a female to carry a firearm on his behalf. Now, the defendant continues to have access to guns, including illegal firearms. Found a bunch of those. Here's one. Looks like, pictured as a close-up, one of the AR-15s is visibly bored through and obscured. The serial number, bored through and obscured. You can see they just took like a Dremel to that and just Dremeled that out. You can't even see it. So here, 2 of the 3 defaced AR-15s were also found in the Miami bedroom closet, stored down in broken parts with various magazines. You see here a large capacity drum magazine with 59 rounds. That's cool. In addition, 6 legally purchased guns with serial numbers, some of which were stored in gun safes, were also found there. In sum, the regular use of violence and the access to weapons means he's a threat. He also bribed a bunch of people. Throughout the time charged in this indictment, when he faced the possibility of criminal repercussions, he bribed people. In 2016, he was captured on video beating a woman in a hotel area in an attempt to prevent her from leaving a freak off. Oh, that's what was going on? That poor woman? She's like, this is a freaking freak show. He's like, yeah, welcome to Diddy's hotel room. She's like, ah! Runs out of there. He beats the crap out of her. Everyone is just like allowing it to happen. When a member of the hotel security staff intervened, Diddy attempted to offer the hotel security officer a stack of cash. Here, man, just take this, get out of here. After the security guard refused the bribe, and after the coordination between Diddy and the employees, Diddy and the staff contacted other members of the hotel security. At the same time, staff members were in close communication with the victim as well, and they covered the whole thing up. Within days of the incident, check this out, the surveillance video disappeared from the hotel's server. Whoa! It's a huge conspiracy. Now, similarly, throughout the time period charged in the indictment, they also reached out to multiple victims. More recently, in 23, immediately following the allegations, there was more physical violence on at least 2 occasions. Diddy recorded those calls on a co-conspirator's cell phone, thereby attempting to obscure his involvement in the obstruction. So he used other people's phones. And the investigation is ongoing. So we think he's going to mess with witness testimony. And so we think he should be held in custody. Under the law, obstruction is a good reason to keep someone in. Here are the 4 reasons. We consider the evidence against the person, whether there is, the nature and the nature of the charges, whether he's a danger to the community, the dangerousness, whether he's going to flee. And if the judge determines that there's no condition or combination that will reasonably assure that Diddy will be back and that everybody's going to be safe and that the judicial process will be managed appropriately, then we got to keep him in custody. So here are the factors we just told you about him. Now, is he dangerous? They say, yeah, he's dangerous. He's charged with pretty serious and violent crimes, physically and sexually abusing women. That's why we got to keep him in custody. Commercial sex workers, physical force, financial pressure, freak-offs all over the place, orchestrated sexual performances, drug use. And that's not all, they say. On numerous occasions, he assaulted women and employees, pushing, kicking, slamming them against the walls. Other members and associates were also capable of premeditated violence. Other members and associates. You think we're going to see some more criminal charges against these people? Diddy's violence, whether spontaneous or premeditated, had the effect of exerting his continued control over these individuals. They carried firearms, multiple defaced rifles were found, and the disposition to violence cannot be prevented through bail conditions, right? It was pervasive. It was systematic. This guy sounds like Hunter Biden, to be honest with you, with less money, and it's really not much different than Hunter Biden. He was also beating his hookers and prostitutes that he was trafficking around. So why isn't Hunter being investigated for any of this? But I digress. Now, as described above, Diddy has sexually and physically and emotionally abused partners for decades, including by forcing them to engage in freak-offs. And so there's violence here. Now, the violence has often occurred behind closed doors, hotels, private settings, not easily monitored. All these freak-offs were at his homes or at the homes of his female victims. What a weird thing. Now, in some, Diddy's long history of violent conduct makes it clear. He's a serial abuser. Vast wealth, can't let him go. He's going to physically assault people. Now, in addition to him being violent, there's also the threat of obstruction. As part of the racketeering charges, Diddy engaged in obstruction, bribery, witness tampering, as detailed in the indictment following the March freak-off. The defendant, Diddy, attempted to bribe hotel staff, and he didn't want anybody to disclose any of this abuse. Now, more recently, he's also engaged in obstructive conduct related to these matters. Specifically, following November 2023, Diddy and his intermediaries acting on his behalf reached out to victims, including individuals that he did not speak to regularly. With respect to at least two of these individuals, they wanted to protect Diddy. For example, in November 2023, just 3 days after the lawsuit came in against him, Diddy made multiple calls to another victim, and other co-conspirators did too. During the calls, Diddy repeatedly asked for the victim's support and friendship, attempted to convince the victim that she had willingly engaged in these acts. Remember, you did that. You wanted to put that thing there. Now, Diddy also assured the victim that if she needed the defendant to, that she ain't got to worry about nothing else. You ain't got to worry about nothing else, you said. A thinly veiled attempt to force her into supporting him. He also contacted other witnesses on multiple occasions, including witnesses who also got grand jury subpoenas. Now, Diddy, his recent conduct is also similar to this case where they said, you're not getting out of custody. Here, his conduct goes even beyond that. He took multiple proactive steps to interfere with witnesses. Trying to make them create some false testimony. Nothing is going to stop that, so you got to keep him in custody. And we think he's also going to be a flight risk. So, Judge, if you let him out, he's going to bail. Nor can Diddy overcome the presumption that he's going to flee. Okay, the crime here carries 15 years imprisonment. And look what happened to Weinstein, man. They're not playing around. Here, Diddy is facing at least 15 years if he's convicted. At least. That's the starting point. Like the mandatory minimum. The fact alone here provides a compelling incentive for anyone to flee. But the incentive to flee here is pretty strong. He could spend a substantial portion of the rest of his life in prison. And so as detailed below, the evidence here is very powerful. We've got dozens of victim witnesses, dozens of people corroborating information. Individuals include many who personally experience and witness this violence at his hands. And moreover, their accounts are well corroborated by significant extrinsic evidence, financial billing records, travel records, electronic data, communications, even with himself. There's victim testimony regarding freak-offs that's oftentimes corroborated by other people. Commercial sex workers, travel records, hotel records, videos of freak-offs. Similarly, a victim's physical abuse may be corroborated by, and among other things, videos of the abuse, Photographs of injuries, reports made to law enforcement. See, I'm thinking of this from the defense perspective. What are they going to say? When you respond to this, the defense attorneys are going to say, yeah, we can freak off all we want. Okay, leave us alone. If we want to have freaky freak-offs every friggin' night, we'll do it. Freaky all day, baby. These are consenting adults, they'll say. These victims are making this up. They wanted to be there. They wanted to hang out in Diddy's vast glory and all this stuff. The question, right, obviously, that's an argument. When you start seeing photographs of injuries, when you see videos of physical abuse, when people are fleeing the hotel room, when you have reports made to law enforcement saying, I'm being abused. Where the hell happened to law enforcement? What did they do here? Oh, it's Diddy. Maybe right? Why didn't law enforcement do anything? That's my response as a defense attorney. Oh, well, they called law enforcement. Law enforcement didn't do anything. So they didn't find this person credible? Right. Now, communications with the defendant and others, and testimony from other witnesses who saw or heard about the abuse. Okay, so if they saw it, that's firsthand. If they heard about it, that's hearsay. So the vast and varied sources of evidence described in detail below, let's see where this goes, will be compelling evidence of guilt at trial. Thus, the serious risk of conviction provides further incentive for Diddy to flee. Now, the risk of flight is also augmented by the nature of the evidence against Diddy. The evidence against Diddy, which would be made public at trial, includes substantial evidence that is highly sensitive and has the potential to significantly impact his reputation. Dozens of video recordings created by the defendant, Diddy, of the freak-offs. How freaky were these things, man? So his incentive to flee is limitless. His net worth is $1 billion. Yeah, this dude, wow. Indeed, the investigation of the case has revealed that he has access to vast funds. As of December 23, Diddy had access to dozens of bank accounts, some personal, many under corporate entities, which contain millions of dollars. He also had over $1 million in personal cash on hand, probably under his mattress like Fanny. It's a big mattress, though. The defendant, Diddy, has traveled internationally several times per year, and he owns a personal plane. It's also traveled internationally. He also maintains 2 primary residences, LA, Miami, in addition to his plane, multiple vehicles, multiple locations, personal staff, security, trainers, others. Extraordinarily well connected, both in and out of the entertainment industry. His lack of access to his passport or private jet doesn't mean anything. He could easily hop on someone else's plane and get out of here. Now, as discussed below, his legal team has attempted to mitigate this risk by taking the family's passports and so on. We'll read their position on this in a second, attempting to sell his plane and more. Now, while Diddy may have made the calculated decision to consult with his attorneys to give all that up now, doesn't matter. He still can flee, and so that's not good enough. Now, when you consider the weight of evidence against him, there's a strong case here. The evidence in this case is a vast amount of victim and witness testimony, electronic evidence, physical evidence, subpoena returns, other voluntary productions. As to the witnesses to date, we got interviews with over 50 victims. Woo, that's a lot. Many of whom saw or experienced the abuse. Many of the witnesses corroborate one another, and their accounts are similarly consistent with other types of evidence discussed below. The government only expects that number to continue to grow, which is now public and ongoing. Now, the electronic evidence is similarly vast. The government has sought and obtained numerous search warrants in addition to obtaining evidence voluntarily. Setting aside devices seized in connection with this, the government has also obtained 90 cell phones, laptops, and cloud storage devices. Can you imagine what's on there? This electronic data comes from the defendant himself, Diddy, as well as co-conspirators, victims, witnesses, and chronicles much of his criminal activity as it occurs, right? So he's like physically abusing and trafficking people, not letting them leave, it's like on camera. It's not good. The evidence also consists of physical evidence, which was seized pursuant to search warrants, as well as on his person. In addition to the firearms and electronics, might be the most damning evidence ever. Physical evidence also includes other evidence of freak-offs, including over 1,000 bottles of baby oil and personal lubricant. And I don't think Diddy has 1,000 babies for all that baby oil. Is he donating like Toys for Tots or something like that? I don't think so. I think that's baby oil for a different reason. So it's not illegal, though, to have bottles of baby oils, and it's not illegal to have freak-offs. So, all right, let's see. Finally, the evidence includes records obtained pursuant to 300 grand jury subpoenas and other voluntary productions. These materials come from over 100 entities and individuals, communications providers, social media companies. Man, this guy's doomed. Now, together, this evidence, as well as other evidence gathered, powerfully demonstrates his guilt and counsels in favor of detention. For all the reasons set forth, there is no bail package that can reasonably assure the safety of anybody or anything. He's going to leave. The $50 million bond that's secured by his property is not sufficient. And so we do not want you to let him out. As set forth previously, he's a significant danger to the community, presents a serious risk of flight, and so therefore you should not let him out. Signed by government prosecutors Meredith Foster, Emily Johnson, Madison Reddick, Christy Slavic, Mitzi Steiner, and sounds like this is a video exhibit right here, Exhibit A. And so that, I'm sure, is an interesting video. So that's what the government says, and that's a gross one. I have to take a shower after that one. But here is what the defense says. They say, hey, wait a minute here. This is ridiculous. Your Honor, this is ridiculous. Yesterday, Combs was arrested on an indictment for these charges. This is crazy. We should let him out. This letter is going to walk the court through everything that's really happening here. He's not a flight risk. He's not a danger to anybody, all right? He is eminently trustworthy, okay? And he has shown his innocence, and so he should be released. Now, the first thing the court should do when it becomes apparent to his counsel, the first thing that you should know, Your Honor, is that as soon as Diddy knew about this, he left his home in Miami and went to New York. Very smart from a defense perspective. Oh, he flew to you. He's not flying away. He went to the prosecutors. Now, through counsel, Mr. Combs promptly told the government that he'd come to New York, told them where he was, offered to turn himself in. So he's not a flight risk. He self-surrendered. So since he self-surrendered, he's not going to flee. So give him the benefit of the doubt and let him out. Now, this is not the first action that Combs took to show his trustworthiness. It's part of a pattern since even before 2024. They were searching his residences, and he allowed it to happen. In fact, in light of these circumstances, he is cooperative. And so let's let him out. We'll post a $50 million bond that is going to be secured by the home. The home is appraised at $48 million, which is located in Miami, Florida. The home is unencumbered, so he just, in 2024, he paid off $18 million on the home, so you can now use it as bond. It's also co-signed by him, his mother, and adult 3 sons. And so you can also take the equity of mom's home, too. Mr. Combs, just let him out. He won't leave Florida. He won't leave New York. His passport will be surrendered. All of his family will surrender their passport. He's also been trying to sell his airplane since April, okay? He's not going anywhere, so let him out of custody, please. He understands he can't travel to L.A., and he'll be on GPS monitoring. He'll also be limited to his home. So let him out. Now, we have cooperated with you for a long time. We emailed the U.S. attorneys, and he gave us his passport. In fact, in April, counsel took possession of Combs' passport and said that he would not leave. And so we've maintained the passports, and Combs has not left the country. So he's not going to leave the country now. He also agrees that he'll advise you of all of his upcoming travel, and he's going to sell his airplane. He also voluntarily relocated to New York in advance of his arrest, and the family's given up the passports too. Now, there's no concerns about not complying with subpoenas. He's produced a bunch of materials. He's giving you all of his materials. And he literally paid $18 million off to get his home paid off in case this came up. And so, of course, the presumption of holding him is rebuttable. You can keep him in custody, but we can rebut that. And we've done that here. He is charged with 3 counts. But the second count, and none of these things are sufficient, they say. Mr. Combs has a history and characteristics showing that he's never run from a challenge, and he's not going to run from this one. He takes these challenges head on, and he's going to prove his innocence. First, he has given generously to charitable causes. Oh, this is pretty rough. To name only a few examples, since founding Bad Boy Entertainment. That's an unfortunate name when you're charged with crimes. Oh, what's your company name? Bad Boy Entertainment. Oh, but I'm a good boy. Okay. Also, Boys and Girls Clubs, right? This is a little early to be getting into the charitable causes. This is a little early in this motion. Charitable causes. Education, he also went to school. He's also been proactive in health and disaster relief. And also, few people have done more to advance the cause of black people in the music entertainment and industry than Sean Combs. Now, throughout his multifaceted career, Combs has not only created thousands of jobs, including valuable internships, but he's amazing. And so the package that we've situated here, Your Honor, is sufficient. And so please let Mr. Combs out. Signed by the judge and, signed by the defense team for Sean Combs. And the judge has now heard the arguments. So let's go to the courtroom. And here's what happened inside the courtroom. Inside the first appearance of Sean Combs' Puff Daddy, a.k.a. Diddy, trying to get out of custody, court goes into session. Bailiff announces, "All rise, Judge Robin F. Tarnofsky presiding." Everybody stands up, sits down. Appearances, please, says the judge. Government prosecutor named Emily Johnson stands up. Good morning, Your Honor. U.S. Attorney Emily Johnson here with my compadres from the DOJ, names them. Diddy's defense attorney stands up. Agna Philo. Good morning, Your Honor. We represent Sean Love Combs, seated here beside me. Judge says, good morning, Mr. Combs. Now, Diddy, you've been charged with certain crimes in an indictment. And I have to advise you of certain rights. Do you understand? Yes. You have a right to be represented by a lawyer, Diddy, for this proceeding and any questioning by the authorities. You understand? Now, the indictment has 3 counts: racketeering and conspiracy, including sex trafficking, forced labor, bribery, arson, and obstruction of justice. As the indictment alleges, victim 1 was forced to engage in sex acts. Now, you are charged with knowingly transporting an individual to engage in prostitution. Defense attorney, have you received a copy of the indictment? Yes, we have, Your Honor. Mr. Combs, Diddy, how do you plead to these charges? Diddy says, not guilty. The judge says, has Judge Carter set a conference date? Prosecutor says, yes, he has, Your Honor. Tuesday, September 24th at 10 a.m. Judge says, well, I'll exclude the Speedy Trial Act time until then. So remember, we've got a right to a speedy trial, so the clock ticks. So I'll exclude that from the countdown because it's necessary. And so we'll have a detention hearing at that time. Prosecutor says, Your Honor, now these crimes carry a maximum sentence of life in prison or death. We believe there is a risk of flight here in this case, and that Diddy, this defendant, will obstruct justice or even attempt to influence a witness and intimidate a witness. And so this is a presumption case because it's based on sex trafficking. So we presume that someone's going to be held in custody rather than out of custody because of the charge. Now, Mr. Combs, the government bears the burden of establishing that you're a danger to the community. And so the government has submitted their filing. Government, anything to add to this? Says, Your Honor, yes, we do. The defendant Diddy, Sean Combs, abused victims for decades. He used vast resources of his company to commit and cover up crimes. And pretrial services also agrees with us, in addition to our memo, that he should be detained after interviewing him. So the government, it's kind of a court entity, pretrial services. Think about the prosecutor represents the government prosecutors, the defense represents the civilian defendant, and then we have the court entity. So they have pretrial services. They had a conversation with him. They said, yeah, he's facing significant charges. He's got mandatory prison time. And so the government says, we request an order of detention, and we think we've satisfied our burden. We submitted a detailed letter this morning that we read through. And if you read it, There's a lot in there. Okay, he set up freak-offs. He was forcing sex between people, and he was even masturbating during it. He also filmed some of them. He stocked the room with narcotics so that female victims would continue for multiple days. Diddy also then committed other physical assaults. He kidnapped, there's arson, he surrounded himself with, and he used firearms, including 3 defaced AR-15s we seized, 1 in LA, 2 in Miami in his bedroom closet. Now, the indictment charges bribery and obstruction of justice. And let me just give you one example of this. On March 5th, 2015, at the Intercontinental Hotel in LA, in May of this year, we learned about it. This incident is critical, Your Honor. It's a recorded example of his use of force. Play the video. The victim was running out of the hotel room. She sought to leave a freak off, and he assaulted her. When hotel security was helping the victim leave the hotel, Diddy attempted to bribe the officer with a handful of cash. The guard refused to be bought. So then Diddy tried to get the video, and then the video disappeared from the hotel's server. Isn't that convenient? It's not a coincidence, okay? The cover-up continued for another 7 years. There was a civil lawsuit in mid-November that detailed this assault at the Intercontinental, and Diddy denied it. In fact, he called it lies. Then we fast forward to the video being published, and the defendant, Diddy, admitted that he was involved in the assault. It's clear that you cannot believe him when he denied these things. And so make no mistake, Your Honor, March 5th is just one example of this guy. There are numerous assaults. There's choking, there's like judge like, all right. This freak-off activity, says this prosecutor, is the core to this case. The risk of danger in this case is acute. There has been spontaneous violence, so it is difficult to craft any condition for reliefs. It is a long-standing pattern of abuse here. It's entirely undeterred. We have witnesses that we've interviewed that have universally expressed fear. Diddy has contacted witnesses who received grand jury subpoenas. He contacted at least one victim. The constant contact with witnesses on September 10th, just a week ago, in fact, Don Richards sued him, Your Honor. He still contacted him. So before a September 14th statement by Ms. Harper, Diddy called her 54 times in one day. Wow. Sounds like Fannie Willis and Nathan Wade. Some of the way in which Diddy contacts witnesses and victims are meant to evade. He uses intermediaries to contact these people. And so he cannot overcome the presumption here. On obstruction, courts have revoked bail in this circuit. And so there's a false narrative here. R. Kelly was detained. Jeffrey Epstein was detained. Keith Raniere was detained on all 3 grounds, even though the violence was committed by others. And so his incentive to flee changed when he was arrested last night. He hasn't fled now, but now he's going to because he knows this is it. He's a wealthy man, Your Honor. It allows him to flee quickly and without detention. His lawyers have taken steps to minimize that. And they're going to make that argument today. But his incentives were entirely different, okay? He flew to New York 2 weeks ago. He's not here because of this indictment. And he had what appeared to be narcotics found in his hotel even last night. There's some pink powder that we got when we arrested him that had previously tested positive for ecstasy and other drugs. And so this is a heartland detention case, Your Honor. His package is woefully inadequate. It only focuses on the flight risk. We have spoken to over 50 witnesses. We have sworn out warrants for cloud accounts. The search has yielded 90 cell phones, Your Honor, and 30 other devices, including a surveillance system. And these freak-offs, Judge, are all corroborated, okay? I've been reading this crap. My eyeballs are bleeding. 300 grand jury subpoenas have gone out. You should see these videos. The defendant poses a danger to these proceedings through his obstruction, and so he should be detained pending trial, Your Honor. Judge's like, wow, all right. All right, defense, Mr. Agnifilo, how about you? What do you say about this? Diddy's lawyer, he says, Your Honor, now, I'm going to address what the government said, but first, I want to tell you that on September 5th, Combs flew to New York, okay? Diddy came here. We could tell an indictment was coming, and that's why we came. Diddy flew to New York. I told prosecutors I'd like to have him turn himself in if you're going to indict him. That's why he's here. We're here. He is not a flight risk. Now, we got involved in this case in March, Your Honor, my office did, and we've been doing our own investigation as well. And on March 13th, I reached out to my colleagues at the U.S. Attorney's Office in March, and I asked them to meet with me. Now, the November lawsuit seems connected. It got attention, and so they read the newspapers. So after the raids, and by the way, I think Diddy was originally sued here under the same statute that they created to prosecute Trump. The November 20th lawsuit says they read the papers, and so now they're investigating Diddy. Defense attorney continues. He says, after the raids, we took Combs' passport, and after that, anytime he traveled domestically, we told the government. And so we wanted to build trust. We wanted to surrender. And we told you when he was going white water rafting, we wanted to build trust. And the March raids were frightening. Lasers were pointed at his children. They marched out in front of the house with news reporters and helicopters. Handcuffed for 2 hours. Completely innocent. We do not want that to happen again. And so that's all happening there in the courtroom. And let's see if we have any more reporting here on the second half of the story. And we do. It carries on. Here's what it says. As the story continues, we see we surrendered his passports. We're trying to make this work. We're trying to sell the plane, Judge. It's not our first rodeo. The plane, someone else is using it right now tonight. So just my luck, I wouldn't have the temerity to come here and ask for freedom if I didn't have the passports. So he's not going anywhere. Now, there's one victim in count 2, which is the sex trafficking charge. Mr. Combs wrote a very large check to someone he was in a relationship with for 10 years. Now, people got in line for their checks. I had no idea. 12 victims? I didn't know. I'm happy there's only one. He says, Your Honor, the case we think is eminently manageable. Pretrial services says he's got a criminal record, but he was acquitted, okay? He doesn't have a criminal record. He's ready to do that again. He got charged before. He was acquitted then. He's going to be acquitted now. Why is he here in New York? He's here for treatment and for therapy, okay, Judge? He's not a perfect person. Okay, these toxic relationships were mutual, though. Now he's trying to be better for the rest of his days. If there's one thing we've seen, we should stand with people who are trying to get the help that they need. This is the Hunter Biden defense. Now, somehow this hotel footage found its way out. I wonder how that happened, Your Honor. We didn't have it. The government had it. It got out on a day that Trump didn't have any court proceedings. Mr. Combs saw it and issued an apology, okay? He wanted to do that. Now, there were 2 people in a hotel room. An issue that Mr. Combs had more than one girlfriend, okay? Victim 1 was looking through his phone and saw that, then hit him in the head with the cell phone and took his clothing. So he came out in a towel, okay? It was just angry girlfriends. Oh, man. Says the 2 people were in love. Victim 1 ended up marrying the trainer that Mr. Combs got for her. They had been cheating on each other for years. But now she has 2 kids with him. So it's a good thing for Mr. Combs. So she has her lawyer call his lawyer and say, she's written a book, but if you want to buy the rights, you'll have the rights, but you got to pay us $30 million. We have a recorded conversation. We got her blackmailing us, Judge. It did not go well for her and the lawyer either, so then she sued. And so when he contacts witnesses, it's not to stop criminal investigations. It's not to be seen that one or that way. Why is it depicted as a one-sided thing? There's 30 million reasons, $1 a piece. She said, I'm going to write a book and you can buy the rights. And this other lawsuit is from the same band, same tune, same band. The lawsuit says he did a couple of inappropriate things, but that's not my experience. That's not intimidation. There's nothing wrong with that, having divergent recollections. And I'm not even sure that Don Richard is a witness in this case. Your Honor, my client hasn't done a darn thing. We have interviewed at least 6 of these males. We asked, did it seem non-consensual? Was anyone too drunk or too high? They all said no. Right there it is. It's all consensual. So is it sex trafficking if everyone wants to be there? No, of course not. You want to freak off all night? Freak it off. We don't want the federal government in our bedroom. Kidnapping? We spoke to that victim. She never said kidnapping to us. One day it may be heard, but Mr. Combs employs a security company. And Combs has nothing to do with how the guns are kept in the house. He needs security, okay? He lives in Miami and LA. So the guns may not even be his. Not for us to say. And Jeffrey Epstein, that was with children, okay? Keith Raniere, that was children, Your Honor. We have substantial bail package. We didn't do anything with kids. These are all consenting adults. They want to freak off all night. They can do it. They love him. A $50 million bond. His family's here. They're all in this courtroom. They're here. Now, one day we're going to have a fair trial here, Your Honor, and we have substantial defenses to each of these charges. Combs is handling this head on. He's become a punching bag. He's built businesses from scratch. His father was killed when he was 2. He earned all of this. And he's earned this court's trust, and I have nothing else to say. Okay, government prosecutor, any rebuttal, says the judge? Your Honor, defense counsel has his critique of law enforcement saying this investigation was bad, but he has not rebutted the presumption that he should be released. In fact, 3 days after the lawsuit, he is recorded saying he doesn't want to talk on the phone because it might be tapped. He uses armed security, but they have defaced AR-15s stored in his personal closet. Those aren't security weapons. Those are his. Why would armed security, official security, have illegal guns? Now, for the record, Your Honor, we are proceeding on a theory of lack of consent, that she was coerced to participate in those sex acts. Well, he wouldn't be a danger, would he, if he only engaged in these behaviors with consenting adults? So, wait, are you saying this is just a he said, she said thing? It's some woman who says that he abused her and he says he didn't, that's it? What if they consented to that? Well, we have the hallway video where we see him running out. And the defense says, Your Honor, that's a slippery slope, okay? The government is going to say that she was coerced. She had to say that to go for the $30 million. She needed the money. We have a serious bail package. I hope Your Honor can see that Mr. Combs has done things to show you he's trustworthy. And I'm asking you to trust me, Your Honor. Oh, this defense attorney. Trust me. I have my eye on him. I'm going to keep him under control. We speak 5 times a day, Your Honor. I just want to thank you, Your Honor. He's like pleading. This defense attorney is pleading. Please, Judge. Judge says, thank you. Okay, I'm going to take a short recess, and I'm going to invite pretrial services to join me in the robing room. Combs is sitting at the defense table with his defense attorney gesturing him at front of him. Judge comes back, brings the attorneys back out. Judge announces, all right, I've made my decision. All the parties are here. Now, in this case, I find that the presumption has not been rebutted. So Sean Combs Diddy will be retained. He says, all right, I've read all of this. There has been significant violence and there were weapons used. Also, coercion of witnesses, even gentle coercion can be effective. And so the type of behavior we're talking about happens behind closed doors. I thank your family members for coming, but I cannot release him. And so for the record, Mr. Combs was arrested at 8:25 last night, Your Honor. He says, thank you. We are adjourned. And so a great report from Inner City Press. You know who he is, always doing great reporting. Give him a follow at Inner City Press. Diddy is not going anywhere. And we see that the docket has a bunch of activity. The indictment has been filed. We had the bail package. And the latest update, as you can see, has not hit the docket quite yet. So he will not be getting out of custody. And I'm sure we'll see some more paperwork about this from the court. But very interesting case. Has all the hallmarks of a Jeffrey Epstein operation, doesn't it? Or a Harvey Weinstein operation. We'll continue to cover this one. Keep our eye on it. Thank you for subscribing to our channel and liking this video wherever it is you're watching us from. We've got more great stuff to cover, and we'll look forward to seeing you as the coverage continues. Now, let's change gears a little bit, and let's talk about Ghislaine Maxwell. Before we get into the Trump stuff, we got some Ghislaine Maxwell updates because, as you can see, she has filed an appeal, and it's not working out well for her. So here is the story. We're turning our attention over to Ghislaine Maxwell. Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein's number 2, got some bad news from the United States Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit. She took this case up on appeal from the Southern District of New York. This is where she was convicted of multiple crimes for being involved in Epstein's ring. But what was so curious about this is we were wondering why she was prosecuted at all, because Jeffrey Epstein had a very, very nice non-prosecution agreement that covered Ghislaine Maxwell. Covered, I think, everybody that Epstein ever talked to, essentially. But Ghislaine said, wait a minute, why am I being prosecuted? Why are all the people who used Epstein's services and Maxwell's services, why are they not in custody with me? Why are they all out running free, trying to make us take vaccines and not facing any repercussions at all? So Ghislaine took this up. The Court of Appeals is telling her, you're done. Sorry, not good enough. Ghislaine Maxwell writes the Court of Appeals, now appeals her June 29th judgment of a conviction that came out of the Southern District. We covered that at length here. Tons of videos on our channel if you're interested. Maxwell was convicted of conspiracy to transport minors with intent to engage in criminal activity, transportation of minors, sex trafficking of minors, and so on. But who did she traffic them to? Apparently nobody. She was principally sentenced to concurrent terms of imprisonment, 60 months, 120 months, and 240 months respectively, to be followed by concurrent terms of supervised release, meaning these are all running at the same time. You don't do 60 months and then 120 months and then 240 months. That would be consecutive, but this is concurrent, meaning they're running parallel with each other. So Ghislaine is appealing this. She says, wait a minute, hold on. She said Jeffrey Epstein's non-prosecution agreement with the DOJ prevented Maxwell from being prosecuted because it immunized her. There was a second superseding indictment. They said that did not comply with the statute of limitations. They say the lower level court abused her right to a fair trial motion, and the response to a jury note was also problematic, and her sentence was procedurally reasonable. So the Court of Appeals says, no, it was great. Finding no errors, we now affirm Ghislaine Maxwell, you're going to continue to sit in custody and you're going to be there for quite some time. Here's what the Court of Appeals says, that Maxwell appeals all of this. She was engaged in a conspiracy, and on appeal, the question is, does Jeffrey Epstein's non-prosecution agreement, his sweetheart deal that was entered into by Florida, does it protect Ghislaine Maxwell as well? They hold that Epstein's NPA, the non-prosecution agreement, does not bar Maxwell, and it does not bind the Southern District of New York. They say the indictment complied with the statute of limitations and other things. And so let's see how this is broken down. They say in September 2007, remember this, following multiple investigations, Epstein took his first plea deal in Florida. Epstein agreed to plead guilty to one count of solicitation of prostitution in violation of Florida statutes. It was a joke. It's a state level crime for solicitation, which is like asking for. Violation. He agreed to receive a sentence of 18 months imprisonment, and the non-prosecution agreement, right, this sentence was a wild one. It said the United States also agrees that it will not institute any criminal charges against any potential co-conspirators of Epstein, including but not limited to these four women: Sarah Kellen, Adriana Ross, Leslie Groff, and Nadia Marcinkova. Insane that this would be so broad. You could just read that clearly. Any potential co-conspirators, that's Maxwell, including but not limited to these four women plus Maxwell. Like, she's clearly included in that. But they're going to say she's not. Now, the indictment filed against Maxwell contained 8 counts, 6 of which proceeded to trial. Prior to the trial, prospective jurors completed the questionnaire and voir dire was completed. They impaneled the jury. 4.5-week jury trial. We covered it. It was insane. Following the verdict, Juror 50 gave press interviews, and Juror 50 even admitted after that Juror 50 was a survivor of child abuse. In his answers to the jury, he said no. He said, no, I'm not a victim of child abuse. Then he is. He's like, I got abused, so I know how this works when he's on the jury panel. He answered, he basically lied. He was wrong on the jury form. Maxwell moved for a new trial. She was sentenced to 240 months, big fine, and more. Now, here's where they get into the details. Now, Maxwell sought a dismissal. She says, I'm covered by the non-prosecution agreement. In arguing that it barred her prosecution, she cites a portion of the prosecution where it said it would not institute any criminal charges against any co-conspirators. Now, it's well established in our circuit that a plea agreement binds only the office of the U.S. Attorney for the district in which the plea is entered, unless it affirmatively appears that the agreement contemplates a broader restriction. Oh, so they're just saying it's limited to Florida. What a cop, man. That's funny. So it's only limited to Florida. So Ghislaine is only immunized if she's prosecuted in Florida. What a joke. What a joke. And while Maxwell contends that we cannot apply an abi to an agreement negotiated outside of this circuit, we've done this before. And so we conclude that Epstein's deal did not bar Maxwell's prosecution in New York. This is a lot less interesting than I thought. There is nothing in this that shows that it was intended to bind multiple districts. So they didn't say that it should bind her in New York. Instead, where it's not silent, the agreement scope is expressly limited, they say, to the Southern District of Florida. They make it clear that if Epstein, he would no longer face charges in that district if Epstein did his job. So they write here, in this district, no charges in this district. So they can charge him elsewhere. Whatever. They were not going to, whatever. The only language that speaks to the agreement's scope is this limiting language. Now, the negotiation history, just as the text, fails to show that the agreement intended to bind other districts. And so our precedent says that the NPA affirmatively, unless it specifically affirmatively binds other districts, it's not bound. And so basically, it's a bait and switch. Okay, what you see here, this is your sneaky government being ultra sneaky. So they got Epstein in this plea deal that, sorry for all the scrolling, I was looking for that sentence, where it's basically a blanket get out of jail free card, right? It's basically get out of jail free. Then they find an exclusion and they indict him, they indict Maxwell, but we have no other person who actually used their services gets indicted. So they say the U.S. Attorney's Manual that was operable during this required that, right? So our own manual also explains. And so her conviction is valid. And so this case controls. Nothing in the text suggests that New York couldn't prosecute him. Only Florida could. You know how many different jurisdictions there are? What good is an immunity agreement, a non-prosecution agreement, if they can just go next store and charge you? And they knew this, okay? It's a joke. All of those 4 women, Epstein was traveling around everywhere. He was in New York. He was in New Mexico. That was contemplated to give him total immunity from everything. And they just indicted him elsewhere. Maxwell too. It's a joke. They're scapegoats. Okay, this is a cover up, and it irritates me that more and more people are not indicted as a result of this, and they're just going to cover it up. Oh, she did it. Her convictions will stay, and we're just going to button this whole thing up. Congress could have said, so now they're talking about the statute of limitations, and their denial of her request for a new trial was absolutely proper. So we review this for a new trial, did not abuse their discretion. And the juror's testimony was credible, that his error during voir dire, when he was actually abused of sexual abuse, it was not deliberately incorrect. So it was an innocent error. And even if he would have told us the truth, he would not have been struck for cause if it was accurate. And so it didn't ultimately harm Ghislaine Maxwell, and the court did not abuse its discretion in denying the motion. And I think the judge who presided over this case actually got an appointment to the Second Circuit. And so they sent out the following note as well. Under count 4, if Maxwell aided in the transportation of Jane's return flight, but not the flight to New Mexico, can she be found guilty under the second element? And so they referred the jury to the count. Maxwell filed a letter seeking reconsideration, and the court is going to deny that as well. And so we agree with the district court that the jury instructions, while the note could have been ambiguous, it was clear it referred to the second element of count 4. And so we cannot conclude that the evidence prejudicially varied from the indictment. And so for the reasons set forth above, all this is valid. And Ghislaine Maxwell's sentence remains. So they summarize for us as follows. They write, the district court did not make a mistake in holding that Epstein's NPA did not bar Maxwell's prosecution, so it was blanket immunity only for Florida. The district court did not err in holding the indictment was filed within the statute of limitations, did not abuse its discretion, and so Ghislaine Maxwell now is going to be held in custody and serve out the rest of her sentence unless she appeals this, and she will. She'll appeal this up to the Supreme Court. Now, I don't know if the Supreme Court's going to reverse that, but what they did is a cop here. They gave Epstein basically blanket immunity and let him run free for a long time, and then reverse that. Maxwell is the scapegoat. Everybody else who was responsible for their services escaped prosecution. Very, very convenient. Okay, so we've got one final story on the day. The Trump assassin was apparently waved on into the country. He was flagged by Border Patrol. And then when they referred that over to Homeland Security, Homeland really wanted nothing to do with it. You can see the story comes from Just the News, and it is a doozy. They say that the Trump assassin was interviewed by Customs and Border officials when he came back from Ukraine last year. They flagged him for further review and investigation, but when they sent it over to Homeland Security, they declined to act. The June 2023 encounter with Routh was at Honolulu. It's confirmed by Border Patrol entry records that the Just the News agency found, and is the latest tale. The records show that border officials knew that Routh had traveled to Warsaw, Poland, near the Ukraine border. Then he went to Istanbul, Turkey, and he admitted in his interview that he'd been recruiting as many as 100 foreign fighters from Taiwan, Afghanistan, and Moldova to join the war. Routh even gave U.S. agents who interviewed him a business card that portrayed him as the director of a, quote, international volunteer center that also claimed to have contact in Syria and Israel and more. He also described who had underwritten his efforts to recruit foreigners. So the Border Patrol wrote, the subject who is here at the border trying to get into the country is a U.S. citizen who had traveled to Kyiv, Ukraine for 3 months, wanted to help recruit soldiers to fight in Ukraine from Afghanistan, Moldova, and Taiwan to fight against Russia. Now, the subject stated that he does not get paid for his recruiting efforts, and all his work for the Ukrainian government is strictly volunteer. He provided his recruiting business cards, which has been uploaded, which list his recruiting partners and that he speaks with to recruit soldiers from Afghanistan, Romania, Pakistan, Syria, and Israel. The memo stated that the Ukraine advocate was referred to Homeland Security Investigations, the lead investigative organ for Homeland Security. But Homeland declined to pursue the matter. They said HSI was contacted and they refused the case. The interview memo stated. Homeland Security officials did not immediately respond to a request for comment, and the memos add to a body of evidence that there are some problems here. This guy showed up in court. We covered everything that happened at the court hearing on yesterday's show, but apparently he was laughing and smiling ahead of his first court appearance, was wearing scrubs and shackles, walked into court, smiled and laughed about 3 to 4 times as he was speaking to his attorney. No cameras in there, but he was charged with 2 gun charges. We read through the indictment in the court documents yesterday. Routh appeared fully engaged, will be formally arraigned on September 30th. And so that's what he looked like when he was in the back of the police vehicle. Now, the White House has come out and they say that they forcefully condemn all acts of violence. We don't want any violence in this country. Then Karine proceeds to call Trump a threat to democracy.
Thanks, Karine. Donald Trump blamed President Biden and Vice President Harris for the latest assassination attempt against him. He claimed without evidence that their rhetoric is causing him to be, quote, shot at. How is the White House responding to those comments?
Well, I love that you added without evidence, because I want to be very clear here. The president and the vice president have always forcefully condemned violence in all forms, including political violence, and we certainly have never encouraged any violence in any way. If anything, this is a president and a vice president has been pretty forceful about that. When it comes to differences.
Okay, first of all, that's not true. These people talk like maniacs all the time. Trump's defense team and campaign officials, rather, put this together. They said, here's a couple examples when the Democrats and the lefties like Karine, Kamala, and Biden, when they've caused some incendiary rhetoric to emanate from their mouths, which might create some problems throughout America. It's their standard. They say if you say bad things happen. They've gagged Trump over this. Is someone going to gag Kamala so she can't speak? I mean, thankfully, the would-be assassin was stopped by the heroic action of law enforcement, says Trump. But here are a couple examples of them running their mouths. Kamala Harris repeatedly says, Trump is a threat to our democracy and fundamental rights and freedoms. Kamala, it's on us to recognize the threat Trump poses. Sourced. Does one of us have to come out alive? Ha, 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 says Kamala. Joe Biden said, it's time to put Trump in the bullseye. Joe Biden said, I meant this from the bottom of my heart. Trump is a threat to this nation. There is one existential threat. It's Donald Trump. Trump is a genuine threat to this nation. He's literally a threat to everything America stands for. Trump and MAGA Republicans are a threat to the very soul of this country. They represent an extremism that threatens the very foundation of our republic. And that is a threat to this country. Over and over again. There's 4 pages of this. Nancy Pelosi, multiple representatives. They say the same thing. It's their talking point. We must stop Trump, and so on and so forth. So here is more Karine now saying they don't actually say those things.
In issues and policies, we believe that there should be a conversation. There was a debate just last week, right? There should be a conversation and a back and forth.
Not really.
About that, a healthy conversation.
It was a dogpile tag
and it's
team.
Crucial that we do that.
Rigged
and
by
the
your
president
moderators.
has also said, when it comes to violent rhetoric, we got to bring the temperature down. You heard that directly from this president.
You guys say it all the time.
And it is not the time to tear Americans apart. We cannot do that or divide our country.
It's your whole
The
party.
president and the vice president is always going to call that out. But they have been very clear, very forceful on condemning any form of political violence.
So do the president and vice president believe that the kind of language that Trump used in those comments I just said are contributing to the tension and divisiveness?
What kind of a stupid question is this? Is Trump blaming you for your insane rhetoric? Is Trump causing himself to be shot, basically, is what she asked?
It is, look, we're going to be really clear, and we've always have been. It is important to bring down the temperature, to bring that temperature down of that political.
Stop calling him a threat to
rhetoric.
democracy,
We've
then.
been very clear about that.
How about that?
We believe, this president believes, let's not forget why he decided to run in 2020.
Charlottesville.
Was about that, was about
Fake lie.
making sure that we
Fake
bring the
hoax.
country together, that we bring people together, and it was not about dividing. And so we're going to continue to be very, very clear about that. We're going to continue to call that out. And they did. January 6th, the president and the vice president called that out. When Paul Pelosi was attacked because of political rhetoric, violent rhetoric, we called that out. And when the first incident happened a couple weeks ago at the Butler, after that aftermath, the president called that out as well.
What?
And so he's very consistent. He thinks both sides should be very clear about that. It's not just the president or the vice president. Every leader, national leader, or any leader in this country should be calling out political violence and bringing the country together, not dividing it.
How about it starts with you guys?
Just to clarify, so you're saying that the president and vice president believe that former President Donald Trump should be toning down his rhetoric?
So I'll say this. President Biden has been clear-eyed about the threat that the former president represents to our democracy. He's been clear-eyed about that. From his role, let's not forget, from his role of January 6th, where he refused to accept the outcomes of free and fair elections.
It was not a free and fair election. It was rigged by your agencies, your administration. Secretary Blinken, who was not the secretary at the time, colluded with the CIA. So here's another one. Karine got blasted on this because Doocy says, are you guys going to stop with your horrific language, Karine?
2 days since somebody allegedly tried to kill Donald Trump again. And you're here at the podium in the White House briefing room calling him a threat. How many more assassination attempts on Donald Trump until the president and the vice president and you pick a different word to describe Trump other than threat?
Peter, if anything from this administration, I actually completely disagree with the premise of your question, the question that you're asking. It is also incredibly dangerous in the way that you're asking it, because American people are watching. And to say that from an administration who has consistently condemned political violence, from an administration where the president called the former president and was grateful that he was okay.
Why? Why would he be grateful? If Trump is going to eliminate America and he's the greatest threat to the country since the Civil War, we spent a whole war after Pearl Harbor. We spent a whole war going after the Japanese, okay? A lot of people died in that battle. We had a big fight after 9/11, which resulted in 20 years of war and thousands of Americans dead. So if this is bigger than both of those things, shouldn't Trump be like Osama bin Laden? I mean, isn't Trump like Osama or like Adolf, essentially, which is what they're saying? And then they're going to turn around and say that they're thrilled he's alive. Oh, gosh, we're just so glad he wasn't shot. What? He's killing the country, you just said.
From an administration who has called out January 6th, called out the attack of Paul Pelosi, called out and said we need to lower the temperature after the Butler incident. And now for you to make that kind of comment in your question, because your question involved a comment and a statement. And
you're calling Trump a threat to democracy.
You know, it is, that is also incredibly dangerous.
Okay, so Doocy can't even ask questions now. It's dangerous. So maybe they should arrest Doocy for asking dangerous questions. One person who wants to do that is Hillary Clinton. She's so upset that she is not ever going to be the president. Look at her. You can just feel it in her bones. It's emanating through her pores. It's that bitter loser vibe. You can't hide it. It's coming out of her orifices.
Just as Mueller indicted a lot of Russians
coming out of her wherever.
Who were engaged in direct election interference and boosting Trump back in 2016.
What?
But I also think there are Americans who are engaged in this kind of propaganda.
What?
And whether they should be civilly or even in some cases criminally charged is something that would be a better deterrence, because
she's just the worst in the world. I got so many things I'd like to say about her right now, but she wants us arrested, criminally charged for saying misinformation, disinformation things, like how she's a liar and a person who undermined American democracy herself by trying to rig multiple elections against Trump. She tried to rig 2016. Let us not forget, she put forward the fake Steele dossier. It was propaganda, literally propaganda that was created by her campaign. She did it with the FBI. She did it to rig 2016. And she's going to sit here and lecture us. We need to go to jail. First person who should go to jail is you. And hopefully when Trump is back in charge, he locks her up this time. All right, so it's been a beautiful day, my friends, and a beautiful stream. Let's see what you say about all of this. If you're just joining us, we covered 3 good stories today. We went through the latest on Diddy, and so we covered that one. It was an interesting one. He's going to be detained. He tried to get out with $50 million in bail money. Didn't work. Judge said, no, you can't do what you did. And so he'll be in custody for a while. And we're going to see how that case develops. Very interesting, reminiscent of Weinstein and Epstein and Maxwell and more. We also covered an update with Maxwell's case. So her non-prosecution agreement apparently doesn't apply because it's a different district. It's such a joke. That non-prosecution agreement for Epstein was meant to be broad and expansive. It covered multiple people in multiple areas. And then they turned around and indicted him and indicted Ghislaine. And Epstein is now dead, allegedly. And Maxwell is the only person facing any repercussions from an entire operation that was in place for decades. Only Ghislaine is in custody, no one else, including that guy who founded Microsoft. But he's free. And we also had a little bit of an update on what happened on the second assassination attempt there in the golf club at Trump Hotel. Oh, and I forgot to mention this. You guys are not going to believe this. Maybe you will. But we were on Locals this morning. We were talking about the assassination plot. And yesterday on the show, shout out to Pookie's Ma from Locals who flagged this for us. But apparently, if you go to, it's not apparently, it's true. Let's look this up. We did this on Locals this morning. So Trump, if we go to Trump Golf, Florida, International Golf Club, West Palm Beach in Florida, what you're going to see here is yesterday we made a crack on the show that maybe the guy was just confused. He was trying to go to the gun club, or he was trying to go to the golf club, or we didn't know, right? Going golfing, gun club, gun range, golf club. It's very confusing. And so you can see here, this is where Trump Golf Club is, right? And so we don't know where exactly this guy got on. We think he was probably like located in one of these areas. But what's so interesting about this is the golf club is right here, but there's also this road, which is just on the north side of the golf club, which is called Gun Club Road. It's not a joke. Gun Club Road, okay? So when I was joking about it, it's like, yeah, maybe he was looking for Gun Club Road. That's it. Gun Club Road is just north of Trump Hotel. The hell is going on right now? And the sheriff's office that we heard from is right here. There's a whole justice center right here. Medical center, Palm Beach County Justice Center. In Arizona, we have stuff like this. You have like a police substation there. You've got a court center. Police just bring you there. You see a judge, prosecutor's office, whatever. Fleet management. So it's Gun Club Road. And it's right next door to the golf club. Isn't that just incredible? It's like, what kind of simulation are we living in? So shout out to Pookie's Ma. It blew my mind this morning. I'm like, yeah, I thought that was kind of a funny quip yesterday. Turns out there's a road called Gun Club. Oh, gosh. All right. So it has been a beautiful stream, my friends. Of course, let's hear what you have to say about this. Thanks for becoming members. Thank you for subscribing to our channel. Thanks for inviting a friend or family member to come on over here and join us when we cover this news and more. And we're really grateful for your support, however it is you show it. I saw some great donos come in. My friends, you guys rock. What's going on? Paul Hoffman is in the house. 7 months as a membo. What's up, Paul? Thanks for being here for 7 months. Says 0-2 describes Democrats. No balls, only strikes. Yeah, I saw that there was like a fake Trump post that was going around. 0-2. Trump said 0-2. Two assassins, 0-2. I don't even like to joke about it because, you know, luck runs out on those things. So thanks, Paul. 7 months as a member, 2 more till we have a full baby. What's going on? The RP Games says, please see a give, send, go. So if you're in the donating mindset today, my friends, I want to send some love to the RP Games. Thanks for supporting Evangeline Fancher, born 14 weeks premature. So we're sending some love and some prayers to Evangeline Fancher, born 14 weeks premature, going to heal up immediately and be healthy in no time. Thank you for thanks the RP Games for saying that, sending some love and prayers your way. What's up? Sheila Poo says only 617 likes, even though we've got 3,000 people here. Thanks for hitting that like button. Thank you, Sheila, for the reminder. And thanks, my friends, for listening to Sheila. She's got good advice. We should listen. Philip, what's up? Philip Coggins says, is Biggie Smalls' murderer finally coming to justice? Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic there. It's like shocking that they're shocked about P. Diddy. It's been his brand for 30 years. So maybe we'll get some clarity on what happened to Biggie Smalls. What side is he? Is he east side? He's east side, right? Tupac's west side. What's up, Paul Me No? Hey, thank you, Paul. Says shirt choice is a win. The color, the fit, and the pattern. Thank you, Paul. I do like this one. I wore this one in Vegas when we were there. I don't bring it out too much because it's pretty yellow. But thanks, Paul. I like it too. It's a Travis Matthews shirt. It's a good fit. We shrunk it up 1 extra size today based on the comments from yesterday. So thank you, Paul. 9 months. That's a new baby. Hey, Paul. Good to see you. Paul does some memes for us too. He's a good meme smith in the house. Spuds says Rob is making gray Poupon polo shirts great again. Polos are going to save this country, okay? We're a part of the polo revolution. We're going to class this place up. We're going to outlift the left, and we're going to outclass the left. We're going to be classier than them too with our polos. What's up? Because they're, look at them. Hey, what's up? Philip Butler says, I wonder which politicians the government is protecting. Yeah, or what happened? Like, why do these people expire and then suddenly they indict them? Are they not cooperating anymore? They're like, you're going to go out and support Ukraine. And Diddy's like, no, I'm not. I'm like, all right, you're indicted. Thanks. Hey, what's up, Sheila Poo? 10 members. Thank you, Sheila. Thanks for bringing in 10 new members, 10 new friends. Welcome aboard. New members, we do streams in the morning. So if you're looking for some extra stuff, this morning we talked about the exploding pagers in Lebanon. We talked about the indictment on Diddy. We talked about 2024 polls and stuff. We're having a good time with our members. And Sheila, thanks for bringing in 10 new members in the house. We've got 200 Watt Studio. Says, they were friends. So do you think there's an Oprah freak-off video? I hope not. I sure hope not. Nobody needs to see that. You get a freak off, and you get a freak off, and you get a freak off. Hey, what's up, Sheila Poo? Says, Ruth has to be an Alphabet agency asset. No way he could afford all that travel overseas. I agree. I think that there's a lot more to that story. And even if he's just a crazy person, right? You need those people. Like, they're assets. You just let them go. Move them around. Let them facilitate things. They're just people you kind of open doors for and allow to exist. And if Homeland is not investigating him after all of that, what? How does that happen? They just wave him in? We're not interested in this case. He's like an international arms trafficker. And they just say, whatever, forget it. Building armies, literally. Whether he's doing it competently or not doesn't matter. The allegation is worthy of investigation. The fact that they didn't investigate him means they already knew about him and weren't concerned. So I agree. Sheila Poo says, now I don't know that he's like being, orchestrated to go shoot Trump, but they knew about him and let him in. What's up? Sheila Poo says, Democrats are all about division. There's racism, Hitler, threats to democracy, dictator. What in the rhetoric says anything that is designed to unite America? Well, they want you to be united against Trump. That's the only thing. And you should be united against Trump. If you don't fall in line, you might be a Russian. You might be an insurrectionist. Probably need to be indicted. Sheila, thank you for this, Sheila. 10 more membos coming in to round out the YouTube donos. Thank you, Sheila, for bringing in a bunch of new membos. And welcome aboard, new friends. Glad to have you. Let's say what's up to our friends on Locals before we wrap it up and go over to Locals. For our members only after party, we had some good comments. NY is in the house. NY Renal MD says, I think he should be denied bail. And he was. Let's see what NY says. But the reason of obstruction seems flimsy. His network of handlers, I'm sure he made arrangements pre-arrest. Keeping him in custody is unlikely to stop the witness tampering. The flight risk argument is the better argument. He could go to Portugal and just hang out. Sounds like a nice place. I've never been there. Viva Maga says the new transition to Locals after party theme song during the Diddy trial. Is that probably a Diddy song? We'll leave that one. The Rubos are here. Say, didn't the diddler fly his plane to Antigua during the raids on his houses? Videos for blackmail were sent to a safe on the island. Yeah, look at this guy, man. He's everywhere. Diddy was everywhere. With Obama, with Weinstein, with Jay-Z, with this dude, with everybody. And like nobody knew about him? Okay. All right. NY says, Rob, the non-prosecution agreement doesn't bar New York from prosecuting, but keeping out evidence and the fruit of the allocution from Epstein's confession or cooperation, it can have no impact on some of the evidence that they got from Epstein. And NY says the country's more divided now than ever. And it's because the Democrats cheat. They cheat elections. They cheated the debates. They cheat with lawfare. They'll use any tactic to gain advantage and maintain power. The number one reason why Dems are dropping support for Democrats is they can't stomach the morality and the tactics of the Democratic Party. And Wood Chip Bill's in the house, reminding to smash that like button, baby. Man, that makes me feel so cool. A lot cooler than I am, but I like it. Thank you, Wood Chip Bill. And I think Jigam was the originator of that dono. And so thank you, our Locals friends. Locals, hang tight because we're going to be back there in a quick second for our after party and debrief on the show. We also, hey, what's up, Mike Bassford? Mike Bassford just became a new member. Good to see you, Mike. So YouTube friends, we'll see you tomorrow morning on our members only stream in the morning, 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 noon Eastern to hit the morning stream. It's going to be a beautiful Wednesday. And Stan Kittrell, what's up, Stan, says, I wonder what information the ruling elites are so terrified of Trump releasing when he is elected. And two, I'm terrified of them bringing in the prosecutors now that the two amateur or the pros now that the two amateur assassins have failed. Yeah, they bring out the crazies. And next time they'll have somebody who can hide or stand on roofs or whatever. Scary thought, Stan. Don't even like to think about it because we've already seen it happen twice. Why wouldn't it happen a third time? So thanks for that, Stan. Yeah, I think it's more of a structural institutional thing, right? There's a neocon bucket in the world, and there's an anti-neocon bucket in the world. And the neocons are in total control. They've got both parties. Trump is not that, and they don't like that. So they're going to do whatever they can to stop him, which is scary stuff. So my beautiful friends, thank you for joining us. Let's say what's up to some friends on X. Give shout outs to anybody who's joining us over there. You can follow along at Rob Govea ESQ. Hey, Palmy Nose in the house. What's up, Paul? All right. So as you know, some of you know that we had a water leak that happened in the studio. That's why we're here in the dining room. So they're repairing it. Tomorrow, we're probably going to have a baseboard guy banging away at some point. And then we'll have paint guy. But paint guy is usually pretty quiet. So paint guy should be pretty quiet. But I think this morning or yesterday morning, we definitely had shop vac guy who was in the house. He was shop vaccing, man. We had drywall guy, and he brought a shop vac. Man, he was shop vaccing the heck out of that floor, and it looked like it too. I went down there. I'm like, man, there's not a single speck of dust. I'm so glad that he got that dust cleaned up, and especially right during our show. That was a perfect time to do it, and I'm grateful for it because we don't want any dust around here. We don't want to be, walking and getting that stuff on our feet and stuff. So it was great. I'm very relieved that Shop Vac guy was here. It was a beautiful Shop Vac session. And you guys got to hear it too. You got to participate. I'm glad that you enjoyed it as much as we did, Paul. We really had a great time. It was a lot of fun. All right, so shout out to Shop Vac guy. Shout out to our drywall bros out there. We love our drywall bros. Any of our construction bros. We love our construction bros. Special fondness for all of our construction bros. What's up, Danny McWilliams? Says, what do you think about the pager bombs? Oh, we talked about that this morning. I think that there's explosive in them. I don't think that they're batteries. And it was probably Israel or the CIA via Israel, like it was with the Iranian centrifuge hoax. But that makes the most sense to me. I do not think it was just batteries. The reason we talked about it this morning, I think the explosives were too acute. They were nanosecond explosions. Boom! Versus when you see somebody drop like a free weight on a cell phone, like you see this people lifting at the weight at the gym, they drop a dumbbell on their cell phone. It catches fire and then it emanates. It's like a burn. It's like a slow burn rather than an explosion. The fire takes seconds, not milliseconds, like it does an explosion. Here's one you saw from Brandy Coffee. What's up, Brandy Coffee? Sharing this one. Don't snack on me. From Brandy Coffee over on X. And Azok says, man, you look bright. Got to put the sunglasses on to watch the show. Yeah, it's pretty bright. Kind of like the sun or like Big Bird. It's like summertime lemonade, light, free, and full of fun. What's up, Radis? He says, that dude from the future king of England, I want to know who did. Oh, that dude was the future king of England? Oh, damn. I didn't know that. And says, that dude is the future king. I want to know who Diddy has dirt on. Yeah, probably a lot of that going on out there. Okay, so my friends, it has been a heck of a stream. Thank you so much for joining us as we go through this news and cover the highlights of what's happening in our country and our world. We are, of course, going to go over to locals for our members only debrief and after party. And so we would love to see you over there. But if we do not see you over there, well, the good news is we're going to be back here tomorrow and we're going to get into it all again. And in order to do that, well, we're going to need to see you right back here so that together, with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful night, my friends. Sleep so very well. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.